Welcome to your journey of healing with the Healing Podcast, hosted by licensed clinician Monique Owe and co-host Dr. Amber Moan.
Thank you for tuning into the Healing Podcast. I am your host, Monique Owe, and I am joined by a lovely special co-host guest today, and that is Miss Tamara Angela. And Tamara, can you tell our listeners a little bit about yourself?
Yes, thank you, Monique. I'm so happy to be here. I'm Tamara Angela, and a lot of my clients refer to me as their fairy godmother. Which somebody called me that one day and it stuck, and I was like, yeah, I kind of like it. We'll leave it.
Yep.
But I help clients with their spiritual transformation. So I am at what I call the intersection of spirituality and clinical practice. So I've kind of stepped away from doing specific clinical practice, which is why I appreciate you still being here, because I like to refer to you.
You do. Thank you.
Come over here. She's doing straight clinical. I don't do that anymore because I feel like we need that balance. So I work with clients a lot with personal transformation and just being able to dig in and see the whole person.
Okay. So yes, thank you. Tamara has referred clients to me, and thank you. And I always like to say, so first of all, what you guys who listen to the podcast, you see I have all these wonderful professionals around me who are in the clinical field in some shape or form. So as you see, I have some wonderful people around me. So if you need help, I probably got some avenues for you to get some help. The way you need it, spiritual, counseling, mental, emotional, we got it. So thank you for being here today, and we're going to jump into our topic, which is, as you guys know, I've been doing unique parenting, and today we have unique parenting, and it's regarding autism. And I brought Tamara in because she is the mother of 2 children that are on the spectrum. So we're going to jump into it. So can you explain to our listeners your children's condition?
So my oldest is 18 and my youngest is 11, and they're both on different ends of the spectrum. My oldest falls, I know they kind of don't like to use the term Asperger's as much anymore, but he falls a little bit more on that level of functioning where he's super independent. His falls more under like processing, needing extra time to process. And at one point, it really delved into like his social skills aspect. Okay. So my youngest, she's a little bit more of the challenge. She's mostly nonverbal, and we really didn't get her speaking until probably like the last year or so. Really? So the vocabulary verbally was very limited. And with her, we have a lot of like acting out and aggressive behaviors. So once again, she's totally like self-sufficient, picks her own clothes out, does her own hair bows, like we got our own fashion style, like we have all of that. But then just the challenges of mostly being nonverbal and a lot of like the aggressive outbursts.
Wow.
So two totally different
sides of the spectrum, which you had to learn how to deal with, how to parent, right? So first of all, I know to all the parents out there, I know parenting can be a challenge, right? No one came with the manual. Hey, this is how you parent, right? So, but add on a condition that requires some unique adjustments and things like that. That's even something else you have to adjust to. So, Tamara, thank you for the mother that you are to your children. Can I ask you, how old were your children when you found out about their condition?
So, both of them, it was quite early. With the oldest, it wasn't anything that we particularly saw. Actually, his pre-K assistant teacher, she pointed it out to me and just was like, hey, he kind of does some things like my sister. And my sister's autistic and on the spectrum. Like, had you ever heard of that? And, I've been working clinical forever. Of course, I heard of it, but that wasn't a realm that I had ever been in. Like, I never did anything with DD, developmental delay or anything on that side. I was always like severe mental health, chronic, that's where I was. So when she pointed it out, she kind of gave us like this list and was like, these are the things that I'm kind of looking at, you know, and he looks like very much like the things that I went through with my mom went through with my sister. So I said, well, it kind of went over my head. At the time, I was just kind of like, because he hit developmental milestones. So, you know, the potty training, the speaking, he was very verbal.
Okay.
At 2, he hit all of those milestones. And then it's like, it's your kid, so sometimes you don't.
Right.
Your level of normal is your level of normal.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So you're not really looking. But I took it in consideration because I'm like, oh, okay, if the teacher's looking at something. So she said, look, you can just go over to the school system. Because he was in a private pre-K at the time. So she said, you can just go over to the school system and have him educationally tested. Especially if you think you're going to send him to public school for kindergarten or whatever. Which we weren't. We were going to leave him at the private school for pre-K and kindergarten. So I said, okay. Took him over, did the educational testing, and then they're like, oh, these are some of the concerns where he tested.
Really?
So it kind of hashed out that way, and it started out with him he actually ended up with an IEP for speech. Okay. But he wasn't in the public school system. Okay. So I would bring him over to the public school for I think 2 hours a week or something like that to do speech. Okay. So it kind of worked like that. So by the time he got to first grade and he was actually going to public school, he had an IEP. They already had, info on him, and they're like, oh, boom. And it kind of worked that way. With the youngest, there were some things that we kind of saw a little early. So, I mean, she was the easiest one to potty train, but we had a lot of what they call poop play. So we had some of these kind of eccentric things that were happening. And we noticed, we had the baby speech, which is normal. But by maybe 2, we really didn't have that conversation. But we noticed it's you can see the way she thinks. Right. You can see her on point with all these other things. And so I think, she didn't go to pre-K. She was mainly at home. I sent her to the same in-home sitter. I sent our oldest one to for a minute. And then I just went ahead because I knew you could go to the school system working with my oldest. Right. I was like, well, let's just go check.
Right, okay.
And before getting her into I went ahead and said, hey, my oldest has already got this going on. Okay. And the school system was open, with the educational testing. And I said, well, I want to bring her in for pre-K, but here are the concerns. And so they educationally tested her, and she fell on, they had the scale and everything. And so then she actually went to special needs pre-K. Where my oldest did not. My oldest, he didn't really get into special needs education in that way until I started homeschooling him in the 3rd grade. Well, he did cyber school in the 3rd grade. So it was a different kind. It was the same track, but different entrance. For both of them.
So with that said, how old? I know you said. Do you mind sharing? Well, you already said them. So you told your son is 18, and your daughter is 11.
Yes.
Well, I can't believe she's 11.
I know. I know.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
I know.
Well, I guess you said briefly. I guess when they made the comment, well, hey, have you tried this? Did they sit down and explain? Did anyone explain this is what this condition will mean, or this is what it will look like?
No, because I don't think with autism you can, because it's such a spectrum. Yeah. So you can't say this is. It's not like saying, oh, you have lupus. Right. And typically if you have lupus, these are the symptoms and these are the things you're going through. You can't say that. So it's very much the same as clinical diagnosis for us on the clinical side with kids. It's kind of you have those backdoor diagnoses that you have to give to trigger, to trigger an entry into clinical therapy. But it's do we really want to give that before 10 years old, 10 or 12 years old? Because we know those things are going to look different afterwards.
Yes, that is true.
And so it's kind of the same. It's like they kind of backdoor them and say, hey, this is on the spectrum. But you don't know what that's going to look like. Because a kid could be 5 and not speaking. And then all of a sudden, by 12... Here we go.
They're talking up a storm. Okay.
So you kind of can't gauge it in that way. It's not so concrete, which is why they call it the spectrum, because every kid looks totally different.
I think you mentioned some of the signs. You said the teacher recognized some things in your son. And you said with your daughter, you kind of recognized maybe she was flourishing here, but other things like the playing with the feces or something like that. Like, okay, something might be going on.
Things where we were just kind of like, I don't know. Like, and because of our oldest, it was like, just check it.
Right. Just check.
What can it hurt?
Okay.
Like, what can it
hurt?
Good.
I'm glad you were cautious and you said took precaution. You're like, well, let's just see. So with that said, and especially since you have 2 children on the spectrum, did you or do you ever, or do you blame yourself?
No.
Good. Okay. So that's good. That's wonderful. I know sometimes we find some parents think it's something that they did or didn't do during the pregnancy, or they felt like it's something wrong with me. So I'm glad that you said that.
2 totally normal pregnancies and deliveries.
Good.
So no, there was nothing.
Okay.
To me, I mean, I'm of the belief that your children choose you.
Yep. I love it. Yep. That's
so,
true.
That's true. On the days when it gets complicated and stressful, I'm like, well, they chose me for a reason. So obviously I'm going to have to figure this out.
Right. I love it. That is true.
So, I mean, it's nothing I did. I mean, we shared a body for 9 months.
Right.
This is how they came to me. This is how God gave them to me.
Yeah.
So
I love that. So for those who may be out there, if you do have a child that is maybe on the spectrum, or maybe has another condition, and you feel like this was because of you or something you did or didn't do, just know, like, I do believe the same thing that Tamara believes, that your children choose you, and you had the gift to take care of them. So you are equipped to parent them, to nurture them, and to get them to the point of where they need to be in life. So thank you for that.
Well, and I think, I know there was family that wanted to kind of know, because then people want to point fingers and say, well, that doesn't come from my side of the family, or, because I, just for all intents and purposes, there are what not, to the level my kids are, but we don't have anybody who's really deemed special needs on either side of the family.
Okay.
But autism is a spectrum.
Right.
So there really could be people who are functioning in a certain level, but we just didn't know.
Right.
Because a lot of people are being diagnosed with autism as adults.
Yes.
And so they struggled like hell in grade school. Right. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, there's this thing. So for me, I mean, there were family members that were like, well, was it diet, or were you too stressed, or like, I mean, because stress can do a number on any pregnant woman, and here comes your child with higher anxiety. Like those things occur.
Right.
But I would just tell them, I'm like, well, I mean, what did your mom do with you while she was pregnant that made you turn out that way? Because you're not perfect, right? Like you have some faults and flaws.
Exactly.
So that's how I do it, because I don't like when people want to. Because when you want to find fault, it's saying there's something wrong with them, and there's nothing wrong with them. There's nothing wrong with them. That's the way that they were made. You're made the way you were made, and nobody questions that.
Exactly. I think
I
think that is the thing. Yeah.
Nobody questions why you think the way you do, or why you process the way that you do, or why you need extra time on your test, or why you weren't gifted in honors classes. Like nobody questions that.
Right. No one questions that at all.
So why are you questioning the way that my child has to process and learn?
That's true. I think that you're exactly right. I think, it's like that never-ending rabbit hole. I tell people, I said, you keep asking that question, why? You're never going to get the answer that's satisfactory with why. Right. Why did this? It's not a why. I don't know if there's an answer to the why all the time.
There's
it's just,
not.
It's, even if I give you an answer, okay, this is why. Will that be satisfactory to you?
Well, I think what people need instead of asking, I think what it is you're asking the wrong question. If you want to know more about autism so you can understand them more, go learn about autism.
There you go. Exactly.
That's what you need to do. Go learn about that. Or ask me, what are your conversations like with especially family members? I tell them, do you want to know what the conversations are like with the psychiatrist for my daughter? Do you want to understand the meds that she's on? Because she's on meds. My oldest is not.
Okay.
So it's do you want to understand that process so you can understand her better instead of asking me what's wrong with her? Because typically when people ask what's wrong, it's because they're uncomfortable. Right. And they want you to fix whatever it is so they can be comfortable around you. Right. And my thing is well, maybe my kid is in this space right here because they're uncomfortable around you because they can feel that you have a problem with them. So why don't you calm that down?
Exactly.
So my kid can be okay.
Can they be okay? Okay.
Yeah. So I kind of, I don't know. I flip things and I look at it a little differently.
Well, no, I think that's the approach. And everything you said is true. People usually are asking questions because they're uncomfortable, right? Because it's something they don't know about. So there has to be something you can help me. You got to help me deal with this. And I'm like, really? No. Okay.
I mean, think about just going to church for people who go to church. The baby starts crying in church. Everybody's like, shh, hush the baby. No, that's a baby. The baby's supposed to cry. So let's figure out why the baby's crying. They're hungry. It's a whole lot of people in here. The church fan ain't helping. Yeah,
stimulating. It's
loud. They need to be held. And at the end of the day, it's a baby. So baby's crying.
It's a baby.
So the baby don't have to be quiet. You need to calm down.
Right.
And know that baby's crying. Right. And learn to tune that out so you can go and listen to the sermon. Yeah. That's the baby don't have to do anything.
No, not at all.
So, but what do? They take the baby out. Oh, the baby's crying. That's a baby. They're doing what they're supposed to do. Yep. Exactly. And that's how I kind of see things with the kids. It's they're doing things the way that
they're supposed to.
They're wired to do it. So it's kind of my job to have a better understanding of that.
Yes. I love it. Let's say, so can you share what are or were the challenges or some of the challenges that you think you face as a parent?
You know what? I feel like I am, and I don't believe in luck or circumstance or coincidence, but I'll say I feel like I'm fortunate because I do have a clinical background. Yeah. And so when I go into these places for my kids, I go in as mom first. Okay. And then when I feel like the conversation goes left, I say, I'm like, let's pause this. I come from having an LCSW and I've worked 20 years in clinical mental health. Now I'm going to unpause this conversation and we're going to have it totally differently. Okay. And then they're like, oh, and everything shifts. Right. So for me, it makes me wonder what the conversations are like for the parents who don't have that. Right. So those are the challenges. I know autism is such an uncharted territory. They don't have the data on that they do with psychosis. Right. Schizophrenia. Right. There's data for centuries. Yes. Even all the wrong stuff. Right. Yeah. Right. From the 1700s, 1800s. Yes. Yeah. We got the wrong stuff. Right. But autism, we don't have that. And so there is still a lot of trial and error. Okay. Yep. And so I know, are not used to, a parent challenging or saying, no, I don't want this, or having done research. Yeah, right. In that way. And so those are kind of challenges because I come up against that. And then I end up having to advocate for my kid and then advocate for the other folks who I know have to come behind me. Where I have to say, don't talk to people like that. Don't treat people like that. Don't do that. Yeah. Because you don't know who you're talking to. Like, I have to tell the therapist sometimes, like, especially the psychiatrist, because
Yeah.
we know.
Right.
We know dealing with the psych.
Yeah.
It's the same all the way around. I'm just going to say that. I don't know what psychiatrists are listening. But I said what I said. I said what I said.
They are.
It's
they
the
are
same
something
all the way around.
Yes.
And so, like, those are usually the challenges that I have. It's like, I feel like I can overcome it by pushing, but it's constant, like, pushing, and you don't know what that road is going to be like. You don't know what you're going to encounter there. So I'm able to kind of grab information and say, like, when my daughter was hospitalized for like, it was like 10 days last year, and she was discharged, I was looking for like follow-up, like I was looking for this whole procedure.
Right.
And then when that didn't happen, I called her psych and I was like, hey, where's the follow-up?
Right.
He's like, oh, you're just supposed to call. I said, okay. I said, here's where I'm coming from. I've worked this, and this is what I'm used to, and I know that that's a different sector.
Yes.
But so when you hear me fussing, it's because I'm thinking, like, why is this not over here? Is this something that y'all need to implement?
Yes.
Or do you just not do that? Like, let me know so I can know what the expectation is, because remember, I do come from this world.
Right.
And so they're always having to come back and say, oh no, like, it works like this, it works like that. And so they're always kind of side-eyeing me too. Like, oh, she knows too damn much.
Well, I think, they never like the ones who speak up and who are aware, right? But at least, I know you're supposed to at least give me this. Yeah. I think that is a challenge. It's unfortunate that some people have to do that, because you would hope that professionals would treat everybody with the same dignity and help, right? That's why we're coming to them. But unfortunately, it's a challenge because some people are dismissive.
Yes.
They feel like, I guess you're not worth the time of day.
Or I think they're just kind of...
Is it detached?
It's detached, but, I think it's kind of like they reach this plateau and they're a little complacent. Yeah. Because you're used to seeing the same thing over and over and over again.
Right.
And so when I used to work in the ER and people came through and I was doing crisis, it's like, I'm no longer bothered by the drunk person saying these things. Yeah. Because, like, I expect that to come with the territory. So I'm not thinking about that. It's just like, oh, in the beginning it bothered you, and then afterwards you're just like, while you read their panels. Right. And you're going about your business. Right. So I think it's just this level of them just being a little desensitized to things, too. Yeah, I think that's really where that comes from. But I think that can happen in maybe all sectors.
All sectors, oh yeah. Every single one. So I guess a word to the wise out there, just, make sure you advocate for yourself and ask the questions that you need to. Don't let them just pass you on as nothing was supposed to happen. If you have ever been admitted to the hospital for anything, you're supposed to be given some type of follow-up or instructions, right? Yeah. This is what you should do next, right? So that you hopefully don't end up back in the hospital. That's the whole point, right? Yeah. So please don't let them ever tell you that, oh, there's nothing else that we can do. That's not true. That's not true at all. Some people just going to have to work a little bit. That might be it. You might have to just do a little bit of work.
Just an extra sheet of paper.
Just a little. Just a little.
Right.
Google works the same for you as it does for me.
Okay.
So, okay. Would you say anything with a challenge with their behavior that you felt was very difficult to deal with, or still difficult to deal with? Any behaviors?
So my son it's interesting. Like, he had, I think, more like hyperactive behaviors earlier, lots of anxiety earlier, and so that's why we decided to do cyber school. So he did cyber school from 3rd to 7th grade. Okay. And he excelled. Like, he really found himself, and by the end of 7th grade, he's like, yeah, I want to go back to school.
Wonderful.
So I'm the one that had the panic attack. When we went back, like, we went to 8th grade orientation, and I'm like, I can't breathe in the hallway, and he's like, yeah, Mom, I'm fine. This is going to be great. And I'm like, oh my God.
Right.
So, and he rocked it out, and he's been rocking it out ever since. So he's, that we found a space for him to develop, but that was kind of challenging too, like, in that regard, because people were like, oh my God, why are you going to do homeschool? He's not going to have any friends. He's not going to be social.
Yeah.
And, and even I was like, well, damn, I'm not a teacher. But cyber school was different than homeschool. So he actually had teachers and it worked amazing for him. So fast forward, we have a pandemic. Yeah. And you got to do stuff from home.
Yes.
He's like the only kid in his class who's like, boom, boom, boom,
I got this. I got
the workout. I'm done. Like his teachers are like, yeah, he's good.
Wonderful.
Okay, but we've been here. We did this for 4 years.
Right.
Like he
so
knows
used
what to do.
He's
used to it. He's on time. Like everything. And he was cool.
I love it.
So that, he has like minor challenges with them. Just, I think he's the kid. I refer to him as like Buddha. Because he's 18, but he's really like 65. And like an 18-year-old body. Okay. So he doesn't have he's not like the loud kid in the room, or he's not the one with the behaviors. And he's so calm and mild-mannered. I think sometimes the teachers overlook that. Okay. And so I have to always be like, hey, I want him pushed more here. I want this, like, so my challenge with him is always going in and saying, where in this IEP can we see more of him? That's what I'm always doing with him. I'm like, no, I don't feel like you pulled that out of him. Yes. Pull this out, like push more. Yes. So that's always my challenge with him, which I think it's a minor challenge, but it has to happen. Yes. With my daughter, I'm just grateful for both of them, for the village. Yeah. That they have teachers, like down to the bus drivers. Yes. Yeah. That like take care of my kids. Right. Like they take care of my kids. Right. Like as if those are their kids. That's good. So like challenges for her, it's not so much educationally, but it's always finding the supports that she needs, because she needs maybe some extra adaptive supports for like sensory and things like that to make sure she's functioning well in her environment. Because she's more prone to just outbursts and upset because of like sensory management. And her outbursts, when she gets upset, does she throw things or what does she do? All of the above. So whatever you're thinking, like that's usually what happens when she has that. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Does she calm herself down? That's where we are now. Is she's actually at the Marcus Institute doing a severe behavior program, which was 2 years getting into that, and me pushing, fighting, and kicking. Me actually calling their department and telling them to get my paperwork off of somebody's desk because I figured that out. And I was like, I used to work Yeah. Let me talk to. And they're like, what? I said, I already know what the problem is here. Call this person because all she got to do is do this, that. And then the paperwork was pushed through. Because I think they were like, this woman is crazy. And we're going to get this. Like, my kids will get through. Yes. So... yeah, hers is sensory related, and also, I mean, it's like she's a preteen at this point. Right. That plays a factor too. Yeah, we're going through puberty. Right. We were all annoying preteens, of course, who talked our parents to death, always, or got on somebody's nerves. Exactly. Everybody did. Every single one. So she's like angsty preteen who's nonverbal. Like, where does that go? Right. That is something. Where does that go? Is something, definitely. So we're in that stage. When you were uncomfortable, when your body was changing, all that stuff that it was doing. Yeah, like we still have to have those conversations, and so for her, it's like the input is there, the output isn't. It's not there. Always there. Yeah. Okay. Well, so the output ends up being aggression. And I think I want to say I can understand how that can come about, because if you maybe can't find the words or you're trying, it does come out that way, right? It's like, cause it's like I know what I kind of in my mind think I know what I want to say to you. It's not really coming out the way I need to. Yes. Okay. Well, I think this is a good point to go ahead. We're gonna make a little segue here. You guys guessed it. You know what this time is. It is the situation. And although Dr. Moan is not here today, y'all gonna have to deal with me reading the situation. So here we go. Let's see what we have. Okay, Dear Healing Podcast. I am a 35-year-old
My significant other and I have been together on and off for 10 years. We have been mostly on, then off. I have a daughter that he has been like a father figure for throughout our years together. My daughter was 4 when we got together. She is now 14. He and I have great communication. We are pretty open and honest with each other. He has been there for me through some tough times. I've been there for him. The issue is the reason that causes us to have these breaks, and that is minor infidelities, if you can say that. By that, there's been some texting and flirting, some DMs, some messaging with others. That happens on both parts. Nothing ever turns physical that I know of, but we do break up. We break up because we feel like we're not meeting each other's needs, and then we get back together. My issue is we are at the age where we should not be doing this, or it should not be happening. I have things that I want for my life, and I'm wondering if this relationship is it. But then I think about my daughter, and I would hate for him not to be in her life. There's a part of me that feels like I'm being too picky and expecting perfection. Then there's another part of me that says, if we were fulfilled, we wouldn't be texting other people. My question is, do you think we should remain in this relationship? Well, Tamara, I'll give this to you first. What do you think?
So I'm going to come through as fairy godmother because when I do readings for people, about 80%, I'm going to say this, only women come to me asking me for readings about love. My men typically don't do that. If the men come, they're coming because they want me to confirm that they need to let something go, and then they let it go and they move on.
Okay.
Women come to me for stuff like that. And the rest of what people come to me for readings for is like career, where's my money? So that's a huge one. And then I do the reading with them, but then we end up doing some shadow work and some, internal kind of work.
Yeah.
So this is where I enjoy being fairy godmother because I don't have to give in to clinical,
right, the whole
that
thing, like
calm clinical thing. I'm just very straightforward. So first of all, 35. So I'm adding this up in my brain. Okay?
Yep.
So you're 35 and you've been off and on for 10 years. So this is most of your 20s and half of your 30s.
Yeah.
Right. So you guys started around 24, 25. That's quite young. Your daughter has known this man. Now she hasn't said anything about who the actual father is and where he is. And so I like to get more information on that because she may be using that as a reason to keep this relationship around.
Right.
This relationship is a habit.
Okay.
It's not a relationship. It's something that you're familiar with. And so when it looks like something, you need to do something else because your soul is saying, this isn't it.
Right.
But your mind is saying, I know this thing. Right. And so then you keep going back to the thing that you know. So this is where I end up working with women in specific because I do women's groups. I don't really do men's groups, but when we're doing women's groups, I'm always talking about what is it that you need, advocating for yourself, speaking up for yourself, and actually getting to know yourself. Because when you actually get to know the self, then I need this thing. Right. Somebody else may not need it, but this is what I need. If I don't get this, this is a deal breaker. So what I heard her do was actually minimize deal breakers. Okay. Because the infidelity, you called it a minor infidelity, and then said, I don't know if I can even call it that. Okay. So that was ambiguity right there. You pointed out that the infidelity is the reason why you guys break up. So that means it's a deal breaker. That means that it's worth leaving that space for.
Yeah, right.
But then something pulls you back. The familiarity, the nostalgia. This is all I know.
Right.
She could, it's euphoric. So you kind of get high off of that. And then you create reasons to go back to that high, right? Yep. My daughter needs him. Well, your daughter, he could still be a parent figure to her. Because he's been there an integral time. 4 to 14, that's an integral time. Yeah. He could still come around. Yeah. You guys set boundaries. Right. And then, when you move on to the next person, say, hey, this is the person that's been here for her this whole time. This is part of her village. And then you set the boundaries, right? So if conversation is a deal breaker for you outside of that, then you need to say that. Right. The other part is part of like what she said at the end. You know what? Your partner isn't there to fulfill you. That's not their job. You should be in the relationship fulfilled. But 9 times out of 10, at 25, you did not step into that relationship a whole person.
Okay.
So those of us who are in our 40s know that the 40s are like really delicious and juicy.
all the way.
Oh my God.
All the way.
You are getting to know yourself in a way that you know you didn't in your 20s and you know you didn't in your 30s.
Not at all.
And your 40s are just so delicious. And I hear the 50s are even better. But, you know, we're looking good in our 40s.
Right.
So there's a space here where neither one of them really know themselves to be totally fulfilled. You know what I mean? And so she entered this relationship at 25 with a 4-year-old.
Right.
There were lots of things that she was hinging in this relationship. And now you don't want to let it go because loyalty to it. I've been here this long. You're loyal to the amount of years. Are you loyal to the actual relationship? Are you loyal to yourself? So I ask those questions, and typically when I ask those questions, nobody has answers. And that's okay.
Yep.
Because you haven't taken the time to think about that. But I never get with people and they always say, well, should I leave it? Okay, if that's a question on the table, you probably want to leave. You're asking me to confirm and verify and give you a green light to leave. That's not my job.
Okay.
That's not my job.
Exactly.
You have to make the decision because I can tell you all the reasons why you need to leave and then you're going to turn around and stay.
Always.
Because I can't tell you how many, and I'm saying women in specific, and women get really mad at me for this, but how many times they come back and want me to do a reading with them on the same dude. And I'm like, you know this is going to say the same thing, right? So the other end of this is we've really got to get out of the magical thinking of the one.
Okay.
Because that keeps us trapped in spaces that really aren't for us. So when I do counsel and spiritual work and shadow work with folks who come with this very same thing, because this is not an anomaly.
Right.
This is a very regular situation that presents all the time. My thing is, we don't work on the relationship. I don't even want to talk about that man. I want to talk about you. Good. Because when we develop you and you introduce yourself to you, you will make better decisions. Exactly. And you will be able to look back at this along with everything else in your life. Because this isn't the only way this isn't the only area in her life that she thinks like this. She's ambiguous in probably several other areas of her life. Yeah. And so once you kind of get that under control, well, I hate control, but once you manage that and you have the insight there, you'll feel more empowered to make confident decisions in all aspects of your life. Because that's what I want you to do, is feel empowered to, instead of saying, well, let me talk about this with this girlfriend, and then let me talk about this with this girlfriend, and then before you know it, y'all been talking about this same man for what, 10 years?
10 years. It's been 10 years.
You still talking about for 10 years while he's texting other people?
Right.
If you were going to make a decision on that, you would have made a hard and fast decision.
Right.
So I usually kind of dig too and say, what is the other thing that, like, what do you really want to know? Because those surface questions she asks, that's not what she wants to know. She wants somebody to get into the drama with her and say, girl, you know that ain't no good, blah, 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 blah. Right. So she can validate why she left this time. Okay. And then she's going to come back and want to have another conversation with you when he does something very nice for her. So you can validate why she should go back. Right. And then we're going back and forth. Okay. So this is to me, you know, and like I said, women get mad because they want to come and say, no, I asked in the reading, should I stay? That's not how this works. Right. Because that's not the actual issue.
Right. No, it really never is.
That's not it.
Well, I thank you, Tamara, for your feedback. And, you know, to the question you said, I think, should you stay in this relationship? I always, even as a counselor, I mean, I can't tell you whether you should stay or go, but I always say when people usually ask that question, you usually know the answer.
There it is.
But you want somebody to validate the answer and make it seem like it's okay to do it. I think I would ask, what's keeping you there? Mm-hmm. I mean, I think it's fear. I think you feel like you're going to miss out on something if you leave. Like if you leave him, you're going to miss out on something else that hasn't happened yet, even though. So like this is hope, like, well, this is a good thing. So I can't leave this. I can't get something better. I think that's fear keeping you there. And
familiar. Can I add to a piece to that too? Yeah. It's definitely fear of that. Mm-hmm. But then I see women also have a fear that I've been with him this long, and if he leaves, he'll go be a better person to someone else, and they don't want to see that.
Right. And I think, so what I would say to that is, well, that might have been because he was meant to be that person to them. And you're supposed to be with somebody else who's supposed to be a better person to you or for you, right? Yeah. So I think you know the decision. You just want some validation with it. I think, and I get you're used to him. He knows you. I'm pretty sure y'all know some secrets about each other, right?
10 years in,
right?
Yeah.
But I think, 10 years in, my question is, okay, so what did you want in 10 years? I mean, whether you believe in marriage or not, maybe you don't want to get married, but what did you want? And out of 10 years, what are you missing? Because you're missing something, because you wouldn't be writing. So I would say, does it take 10 years to get what you feel like you're missing? I don't know if it takes that long. I don't know. So I think for you, you know the decision. So I won't say should you go or stay, but I think we're both saying, you want us to validate something I think that you know. And even when we tell you, even if I was to tell you, leave. Well, let me tell you why I should stay, though, because I think it's this and I think it's that, but he's a good person. That's not it. So I think at this point in your life, you're mid-30s, yes, in your 20s, I think we make good decisions in our 20s, right? I think, I had a good day here and there, but if I look back at the stupidity of myself in my 20s, you're going to be a different person. So you are a different person now, and trust me, what's coming ahead is glorious and it's wonderful. So I think you should consider just being confident in that you're not missing out. This relationship was what it was. It is what it is. And that's what we have. Some people are in our life for just stages and seasons. So I hope that helps you. But if you need more work, I guess you can get some counseling to help you. But I will say, if you would like to write in for your situation, you can always email support@thehealingpodcast.com, which is support@thehealingpodcast.com, or go to the website, thehealingpodcast.com. Hit the contact tab, fill out the little tabs there, and you can share it that way. So, before we go ahead and jump back into our episode, we're going to give a little mention to our sponsor, and we'll be back soon.
Are you someone who has been considering therapy? Perhaps someone else has told you that you need to talk to a therapist. Or maybe you're in a relationship and you want to discuss some challenges that you've been facing with your significant other. Maybe there's a communication issue, perhaps an incident of infidelity. Or maybe you just want to strengthen your relationship because you guys are thinking about taking another step. Maybe you're struggling with anxiety or depression, perhaps grief, life stressors, and you just want to share your thoughts with someone. Well, consider contacting Healing Expressions. Healing Expressions is a private practice located in the Atlanta, Georgia area. You will be given a session at an affordable price with a licensed therapist. If this resonates with you, consider going to healingexpressionsllc.com, reading about the practice, and hitting the contact tab to see if you can book a session. All right. Thank you so much. And back to the Healing Podcast.
Okay. So thank you again for tuning into the Healing Podcast. Back to the episode at hand, Unique Parenting. We're talking about autism today. And Tamara, thank you for what you've shared so far. And let me ask you, you mentioned this briefly, I think, or maybe in general. Can you tell me what or who are your internal and external supports? And what I mean by that, internal people, maybe close circle of people, and external, maybe agencies or other resources that you have to help you.
You know what? External, we're always working on that.
Okay.
Because we've finally gotten in with the Marcus Institute, so we're there for my daughter, for med management and for their severe behavior program. So that's helping, but I know she's going to need a host of other things, and I'm kind of looking future-wise with things that I'm anticipating she's going to need. So those resources are kind of slim.
Okay.
With things, so with my son, his is more like looking at like transitional after high school. He's staying in high school till he's 21. So I found some programs that'll be good for him as far as helping him to kind of link and assimilate a little bit more into society, because he's very capable.
Yeah,
he's very capable.
Right.
So for him, I'm always looking for those things. I'm always looking for to just, I guess, autism or like special needs friendly spaces.
Okay.
So like, they like to go to the movies, which usually works out fine. Going to like the trampoline park.
Nice.
Like we go to the same one all the time, have a membership there, like the people there know them.
Yeah.
So, those kind of things help. And this is maybe kind of crazy, but like when you have kids with autism, like they kind of eat the same thing all the time. I don't know, picky eaters do that too. But anyway, so it's like down to the people at Burger King know us. So they'll slide her a little something extra. Like they see us coming.
That's good. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, so your village kind of gets built in the strangest way.
Okay.
It's been super helpful. We were in Gwinnett for a while, and then our divorce, moved back over here with family. And one of the things my son told me, I think it's the representation that makes a difference of seeing other Black faces. Okay. And especially seeing Black men at his school teaching. Good. And so he told me, he said, you know what? I want to stay on this side of town because we're in DeKalb. It's like, I want to stay on this side of town because it feels more like a family. Okay. So like externally, like I say, down to the bus drivers who, you know. Right. But they tell me as well, they're like, you're one of the parents that calls or shows up. Yeah. And like you come in, like half the parents don't come for the IEP meetings. Yeah. Like, so because I step into the village gives back. That's good. So I'm super grateful for that. Because, you know, they get on the bus every day and like, I know they're taken care of. Right. That kind of thing. Yep. Internally, I think family-wise, that is very hard. Okay. And, I mean, it's whatever. There's not a lot. Yeah. My dad and my aunt help me out a lot. They're a little older. Okay. And so physically, they can't be there for that. Okay. You know what I mean? Okay. But they're on all the school calls, or they're like, where can I information gather for you? Good. You know, because I literally say my brain is fried. You know, so they're like, oh, beginning of school year, we want to get on the virtual call and meet the teacher. Good. You know, my dad is always calling like, hey, update with the psychiatrist. Where's that going? What did they say? What can I research? Good. Like, so that's helpful for me. Yeah. Like I say, my oldest is easier to kind of deal with. He has like he has food allergies and stuff, but he knows how to handle all of that stuff himself. He's not going to eat from different people. Okay. But it is difficult with family. I don't have like large family or anything like that here, so it really is just like my dad and my aunt. Okay. Like my nephew, he's always helped out with the kids, but he's older and has his own child now. Okay. So we have I have family in that way, but I don't have where like the kids are like, oh, they're at their grandparents every weekend, or like I don't have that kind of respite. Okay. So and I need it. And you need it. I can imagine. Yes, you do. You know, because people don't want to necessarily take them or, you know, have them on a break or whatever. So I feel like my kids don't always get included. Wow. In that kind of thing all the time. But there are specific family members that are really good with them. Okay. Like younger cousins who are like in their 20s, who the kids like they'll even out. They're even killed with them. So we have it. I just wish there was more, because when you're a special needs parent, like you need breaks. Oh yeah. And respite is just not. It's not available. It's not what it's cracked up to be.
Well, you know what? That's going to lead me into this question. So, how do you take care of yourself then?
You know what? I probably need to do better because I'm a busybody. I'm a busybody too.
So it says every helper who's helping somebody.
Oh God, I'm a busybody. So, you know, I like my friends will be like, I have like two in particular, and I'll be like, yeah, I'm about to do it. And they're like, are you really? Or are you going to go like take a nap? And I'm like, yeah, I'm about to go. And they're like, seriously? Okay. So they're always kind of like the little conscience on my shoulder.
Well, look at that. Look at that.
Girl, you going to go lay down, or what you going to go do?
Okay. So, I
mean, yeah, I try to, but I think this is any parent challenge. Mm-hmm. You know, when your kids are gone, sometimes you're just like, internally you want to do cartwheels, but you're thinking about like the laundry that needs to be done. And so it's kind of hard to just be like, I'm going to sit down and just binge do Netflix nothing and calm my nervous system. But I think any parent has that.
Why is that hard for a parent?
Because you're used to being on 50,000 all the time. And so then you're like, oh, the kids are gone for a little bit. They left the house. I could go do this. And then the reality is either you crash or you fill that time with all the stuff that you couldn't do with the kids in tow. You know, so you're like, oh, I'm going to get this, I'm going to get this, I'm going to get this. And then at the end of that little babysitting hour, you really didn't do anything for yourself. Your house is clean, though.
Not a thing.
So I think I kind of have that same challenge. I think I'm always just like, let me make sure to calm my nervous system, or because I'm such a doer,
Please do.
I'll say like, oh, I can take a client here because I work for myself. So then I have to always be aware of my schedule and say, this day looks kind of heavy with their stuff.
Right.
I'm going to shut my schedule down and the clients can go on another day. Like, so I'm always having to balance that.
balance that.
Because I work from home and you know how that
well, it's still there. So basically what she's saying, she doesn't sit down enough.
There we go.
Right? But she recognizes that she probably should sit down more, right? So that's the whole point. So I think the good thing, at least she's aware of it. I guess what I'll say to parents or anyone out there, take a break, sit down. The laundry will get done. The dishes will get done. You'll clean the bathroom. You'll do whatever it is that you have to do. Stop putting so much pressure on yourself to get everything so, I guess, done. Has to get done. Mm-hmm. Who said? And half the time, like, who's looking at your house anyway? You know, I mean, only people really coming over there, people you know, if you let people come over, or just you. Right. So I don't know. I think we put this pressure on, oh my gosh, everything has to be cleaned up. I have a family member that does that, you know, if guests are coming over. Oh, I gotta get everything straight. I'm like, for what? I mean, this is not like the dump in here, like the dumpster. What needs to be done? This is either they're gonna be okay or they're not. And if they're not okay, come help me do it. Okay. And that's fine. So I hope you guys do sit down sometime a little bit.
You know, the kids do they have their chores and stuff like that. So it's not like everything is in like constant disarray.
And I don't believe it is.
Yeah, it's not. It's just, it's more like, you know, some days they're gone and I'm like, oh, I'm going to go ahead. And I think I did this last week. The youngest had stayed out with her dad. And I was like, oh, go outside. Right? Because I'm like, I start going through, I was like, oh, let me call one of my girlfriends and see if they just want to go meet for something. Right. But I was in the bed already, like already under the blanket. And I was like, I'm not calling nobody.
Well, was that a good time? Would you just sit in the bed? Did you?
I you know, I relaxed myself and was like, no, go ahead and get this sleep. And then, you know, another girlfriend called like that Sunday. And typically I'll be like, yeah, let's go.
Okay.
But I told her, I was like, no, like I feel like this week is gonna be a lot. And I knew this weekend I had a lot to do. So I told her, I was like, yeah, I'm just gonna like do nothing. And I think I ordered like from Uber Eats and laid in the bed. So yeah, I see it.
You see it.
And I balance it as much as possible.
Are you working on it?
I mean, some days I'm working on it, some days
you're not. Well, we can't expect perfection. That's the whole point,
days
right?
It is what it is.
It is what it is. Okay, so let me ask you, what makes you smile about being their mom?
You know what? Like I say, I'm always like, oh, they chose me. So that makes me feel capable.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like,
yes, I like that.
I'm just like, okay, they chose me. Or like, you know, randomly people will be like, oh, like your kids are, their nature is so sweet.
Okay.
And I'm like, well, I don't have anything to do with it. That's how God gave them to me.
Yeah.
My job as their guide in this life is to make sure that comes out over and over again. And I allow space for them to cultivate that. I like it. Because that's who they are.
Yes.
So my job is to see that and be like, hey, how can we do more of that?
Yep.
So I'm just a guide and a bystander. That's who they are.
Okay. Well, I think I like that, and I think that is true. More parents realize that you've been gifted with your beautiful children, and your job is just to make the gift flourish. And I hope that you can do that however you need to, whenever you can. There is no such thing as perfection.
Because there are days where it's like I want to tear my hair out. Like, don't get that twisted. It's not like, you know, she threw something across the room and I'm like, oh, God gave her to me.
Yeah.
No, I had a breakdown.
Right. Okay.
You know, I was stressed out. I called her daddy cussing, like, get your ass over here and come get these kids because I'm tired.
Okay.
Like, so those days are there. But when I come down from it, I'm like, this is my norm.
I hope you, I'm glad you said that, because I think a lot of parents feel like they always have to have it together. And I don't know who told you. Where did that come from? I don't know. Are you supposed to? I think, people look at these fake things on TV, which are not always reality. It's a segment. I don't care if you watch reality shows. It's a segment. It's a recording, right? But in real life, things happen. You're going to break down. You're going to cry. You might yell. You might scream. But I think you get through it. Yeah. And you get back up again, right?
Well, and that's my mindset all the time. So I'm one of those people where I don't live where things went wrong. Like, it went wrong.
I like that.
I mean, it was a dark night.
Mm-hmm.
There was a whole storm.
Right, it was a whole storm. Right. Exactly.
But I'm always like, how do we get through that? Like, what does this other stuff look like? Because I'm not a shoulda, coulda, woulda kind of person. Okay. So I don't like to have what if. Okay. So my what if is always like, what if it's nicer over there? What do I need to do to get over there? Yeah. So I'm always like, yeah. I mean, I've had to. My youngest is on medication because I had bite marks, like where she almost took plugs out, like
because
it was a lot going on. Okay, she was hospitalized because we had like a month straight. Finally, after like a year of dealing with stuff, it was like a month straight where I had to go in, and I was like, "No, y'all gonna have to sign the 1013." And one of the therapist was like, no, she doesn't meet criteria. And I said, oh, but let me tell you how she does. Yeah. Because I'm a former LCSW and I know what's on the sheet verbatim because I've signed them. Right. So what you're going to do is you're going to sign for this one because I've given you the information that says this. And if you send me home and something happens, I'm going to come back for you ethically. There we go. Right. And I'm going to come back for your license because I told you that there's a danger. Right. And you sent me home. Exactly. Oh, well, I'm going to have to wait for... I said, I know what the process is like of having to wait for a bed. I understand that. But if I leave this hospital, I'm going to come back for you. Right. Like, I was like, God, I hate to sound manipulative like that. But I had to push it because I'm like, this is the third time we here at CHOA. What you want me to do?
Oh, gosh. And for those who don't know what CHOA is Children's Hospital of Atlanta. Hospital, right. Yeah.
So the first time I brought her in and I was like, I think she can go home on the medication. The second time we came in, they were like, no, I don't want to sign the 1013 because we didn't see this. And then the third time, I was like, this is the third time we back. This has happened in succession. It's been a month. And I said, I don't know how long I got belligerent. Because I was tired. Like, I was literally
it was a lot. Look at what you were doing.
I hadn't really slept. I walked into the ER crying. She actually knocked over the plexiglass in the front. Like, she walked up and knocked it over. So I was like, let's keep adding that up from the front. Like, oh, she's calm now. I said, girl, that's not how you sign a 1013. Because she's calm now. Right. Like, assessment is in the system. Like, my God. Right. So... I think my eyes were probably bloodshot by that time. Oh. So, like, I was just like, what do we have to do to get the relief? Because that must not be comfortable for her. But I said, I'm damn sure not taking her back home because if I have to bring her back, me back, or my son back, and one of us is hurt. Yeah. I said, I got your name. I'm going to look for you because that's going to be on you. Right. Because you didn't listen. And I know this. Yeah. Like, so there was, I'm always like kind of at wit's end. So I find those balances. So just in case for people listening, like, I get it. Right. Yeah. These are my, I don't know anything else. I don't know anything else to compare. So there are days where it's like, ooh, we got through that one. That one's really good. But that's parenting. Yeah. Like some days it's like, did everybody eat? Okay. All limbs are still attached. Great. Right. Oh, good. So there are the days where I'm just like, I have to tell her dad, like, because I mean, and this is just the real, I do 90% of the parenting. Okay. Like they're with me 95% of the time. Okay. So where I'm like, no, you really have to step up and take them. Like, you really have to do this. You can't just have them like respite or babysitting. Like, I need you to do this because I'm losing my sanity. I have to get my physical health together. So you have to constantly push. It's a lot.
Yeah.
You're on overload. Yeah. A lot.
I could imagine. Listen to that. So for those out there, advocate for yourself and don't just accept that, no, we can't do anything. So I have 2 more questions for you. How do you, as a single parent or a parent that has a child that has special needs, how do you date or do you date?
I mean, I have dated.
Okay.
And it was totally fine.
It was
like,
okay?
I think it was totally normal.
Okay.
I mean, at that time, I was like wrapping up the divorce and stuff.
Okay.
I wasn't really looking to date, but then here comes this person. And I remember, so my youngest at the time was probably like 5.
Okay.
Just like maybe 4 or 5 or whatever. And I think he was going to spend the night or something because he'd been coming over and stuff. The kids kind of got to know him. Okay. And then, so this is her pre-medicated. And she had like a whole episode where it was like screaming, crying, whatever. No. And I just remember saying, oh, that's the end of that. And then he like kind of sat I had like a recliner rocker in the room and kind of sat with her. And she fell asleep with him. And then I got the next day and I just kept thinking, oh, like this is going to be too much. And then he's like, all right, like stuff went normal. So like later that week, I was like, oh. I was like, huh. And then we kind of talked about it and I was like, yeah, was that too much? And he was like, no, like it's cool. And then we, but he would help me with little things like, oh, I saw this research, I saw that research. So it just happened to be a good mix. Like he was always really good with the kids. Good. He was always really good with like just like checking on them and like, oh, how's this work? Or like, with my oldest, he would just be like, yeah, like he's totally capable. Like don't even listen to that or whatever. Yeah. So, and it wasn't that he knew much about autism or anything like that. It was just a gentle spirit. Good. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like somebody who had a gentle spirit. Yeah. So the kids got really good. They were like, oh yeah, like this is cool. But I mean, just me dating, period, as a like single divorced mom, like I don't bring people around the kids. Children. But my kids are highly sensitive beings as well. Okay. So I teach them intuitively to be inclined. Okay. So, if you come around and they act like they're like, oh, I don't even see that person, then that lets me know, yeah, that's a no. Okay. If they're drawn to you, I'm like, okay. Okay.
So as you know, it is okay to date. It's just, would you say, just have to
I think
work it into your life as best as possible?
Yeah, I think that's with any single parent, though. Like, I don't know if that's so specific. I think that's stuff that you have to do across the board. You know what I mean? So, like I said, this is my normal. Okay. So, when I talk to people, it's like, hey, this is my normal. Like,
right. This is your life. I guess if somebody's going to be a part of your life, this is what my life is like.
Yeah. I'm like, oh yeah, I'm taking Blake to therapy, or I'm taking, I'm like doing this or whatever. So they get to know that because I'm taking them to therapy all the time, or I'm like, meeting with stuff all the time. So you get an understanding, like that's what I'm doing.
Okay. Oh, I didn't ask this real quick. If you mind sharing, do you mind sharing your children's names?
So my oldest is Sterling and the youngest is Blake.
Okay, Sterling and Blake. Okay. So last question for you. What encouraging word, if any, can you share with other parents that might be going through what you are going through?
Oh gosh. I think the biggest thing is to, and this may sound whatever, but is to take care of you. I think all parents need to do that first. Like you've got to put yourself first. And then your kids will be okay. And I think the other thing is too, is like one thing people tell me all the time, they're like, oh, and I hate this because they're like, oh, they seem like they do so many normal things, and I'm like, what does that mean? But I see where they're going. Yeah. It's like, because when I when I talk to other parents,
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, their kids aren't at the movies.
Okay.
Or their kids aren't at the trampoline park.
Yeah.
So me and their dad are just like, oh, they're at the pool today. Or they're at a family barbecue. Like, we just go live life.
Okay.
And just do normal things as much as possible. So I find a sense of normalcy. Like, yeah, there are times where you have to be like, I don't know if I'm gonna get through this store today.
Okay.
Like that happens, and you take that how you need to take that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, but just take care of yourself as much as possible. You be as normal as possible.
Yep.
And then, that spills over to your kids.
Well, I love it. I'm just saying, I think what Tamara said is true. Please take care of yourself. Don't feel guilty about taking care of yourself and putting yourself first. I think if you're not good, listen, your children are not going to be good. Stop telling yourself that lie.
And don't think because they're like nonverbal or something that they don't understand. Right. Or they're not processing or whatever, because they are.
So there you are. So there you have it, right? Because they are. I mean, they're still children. They're still little beings just like anyone else, and they're still going to grow like anybody else, right? I hope you continue to take care of yourself. I hope you, Tamara, make sure you continue, as you told other people, put themselves first. I hope you put yourself first.
Working on it.
And you know what? It's okay. You don't have to figure everything out in one day. Don't beat yourself up. Just take it. Sometimes it is day by day. You love your children, and you're being the best parent that you can be, because that's just what it is, right? Yeah. So there's hope. You can have a life. You can enjoy life. You might have to do things a little differently. You might have to plan certain things out when another person might not, right? But that's okay. That's just what it is, right? So Tamara, thank you so much for coming in and sharing about your beautiful children, Sterling and Blake. Would you like to please mention your services or a website, anything you would like to mention?
Oh, sure. So I am on Instagram. It's Love and Fairy, Faery Magic. There you can find my link tree that has links to my podcast with my Sunday moments, and has links to pretty much everything else that I do. So that makes it kind of easy for me to find me.
Okay. So as you know, Tamara also has a podcast. And so we want you to go ahead and look her up. Make sure you seek her out for her services. And, we thank you for her sharing. And, I'm just going to leave you guys with something. I'm going to leave you guys with two things. One, it is some of the most wonderful people are the ones who don't fit into boxes. And that's by Tori Amos. And the other one is sometimes real superheroes live in the hearts of small children fighting big battles. And that's by an anonymous person. So I thank you for tuning into the Healing Podcast. We will talk to you soon. Bye-bye.